Welcome to another episode of Recess the Podcast. It's your host, Joseph Scott, and I'm excited for another episode. I got my man with me, and it's not just because we share the same last name or the same name, but this is my guy right here. He was a fan of mine at Xavier. We did some beautiful interviews, and he's doing his thing. And I'm looking forward to seeing my man on ESPN one day. So, Scott, man, how you doing?
Man, I'm great. First off, thank you for having me, Joe. It's a huge pleasure to be here. It's a huge pleasure to be here again. Like Joe said, a huge Joe fan. My favorite players. We don't tell you guys is again. He's doing his stuff with the media, but he was a really cold hooper. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's a
I
pleasure.
appreciate you letting him know, man. They be forgetting sometimes. I gotta let him know. But I appreciate you for taking the time to be on the podcast, man. And we're gonna be just talking about your journey and a little bit of the stuff you doing now, and where you see it going. So, my first question obviously is kind of just give a little bit of background on you. Where you came from, why you do what you do.
Definitely. So currently, I'm a junior/senior at Xavier, depending on how my credits work out. But I'm from Bowie, Maryland, in Prince George's County, which we call Basketball County. So growing up, I was very blessed to see a lot of great players, whether it was at DeMatha, Oak Hill, Gonzaga. So we had guys like Quinn Cook, KD. So they've always inspired me. When I originally came to Xavier, I actually was biology because I wanted to be a zoologist. So learned that science wasn't my thing, so I switched to mass communication. And with that, I really fell in love with like sports broadcasting, sports journalism. Did some stuff with our basketball team here, doing like the post game interviews and recording the games. Then once I kind of felt like I was a little bit more polished, I applied for a year-long fellowship with ESPN. I got that, so I'm currently a sports journalist for ESPN's Anscape platform.
And that's huge, man. That's huge. And I got the blessing of just seeing you kind of. I came into the journey a little bit late, man, but just seeing where you were and where you at now, man, it's been a blessing to watch, for real.
Appreciate that.
What do you think if you had to kind of tailor that to one trait and one habit or one skill or just one thing that you felt like got you that opportunity and got you where you wanted to be? Because you said like you wanted to be a zoologist, so that's a whole 180 flip right there. So kind of explain what got you there. You know what I'm saying?
I think if I had to pick one word, it would either be passion or consistency, just because when I first started out, like my first interviews I ever did for the school, I sucked. Like there's no, like I can laugh at it now, but they were bad. I'm yelling into the microphone. I'm kind of like antsy, like, I just didn't look comfortable. So just having a passion for, okay, this is something I want to do full time, so going back out there in terms of consistency, I think last year, let's just say Xavier plays 32 games. I think I probably went to at least 31 of them, men and women. So those are long hours. It's not for everybody. The women's game sometimes will start at, let's say, 5. Men's game might start till 7. So I'm in the arena probably from 4 to 10 o'clock. I'm not getting paid for this. This is, again, a passion. This is consistency, because what I know is, okay, yeah, there's going to be people who are more talented than me, but I know for a fact no one's going to outwork me. So just being consistent, having that passion of, this isn't fun. It's not fun being in the arena sometimes 5-6 hours, then going back home and editing. That's not fun. It's not glamorous. But what I do know is what's glamorous is, okay, these athletes, especially ones that are in the NAIA, they're not getting as much coverage as the guys who are on the SEC network and stuff. So I know, okay, this means something to them. This is going to make their day. This is something that, makes me happy because I love hoops. So just having that passion, just being consistent. Like, I couldn't afford to take a day off, because for me, it was like, okay, if I don't go to this game, there's someone at another school working twice as hard as me. So just being consistent and just knowing, okay, like, it's going to pay off in the end.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Do you think you kind of took that from hoops? Because growing up in the area you did, I got an uncle that grew up around the same area, so I think he actually grew up with Kevin Durant. So he got to see it firsthand. Do you think that kind of played a role in understanding that it's bigger than how you feel, and it's bigger than what you're doing right now, that you got to keep going?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, just again, like you said, Kevin Durant's from here. We got the Grant brothers. We got Quinn Cook. Victor Oladipo. The list goes on. Michael Beasley, Steve Francis. So just seeing those guys, like for me, I kind of knew I wasn't going to go to the NBA once I got to like fourth, fifth grade. I was like, okay, I'm still 5'6", 5'7". I'm not going to grow too much more. But it was just seeing that Kevin Durant, where the circumstances that he came from, and to be able to make it, it was like, okay, that inspires me. And then I have friends who are playing. I had a few friends who play at Cuse, a friend who plays at George Washington, a friend who plays at Oklahoma State. So so I got guys I know personally. Like, okay, they're working their butt off in practice. And again, I played ball growing up. I played basketball and baseball. Believe it or not, I played center in middle school because I was, again, I've probably been this height since then. But one thing was this: I knew, okay, I'm not going to score the most points. I'm not going to be the flashiest. Like, I don't have that. I don't have a handle. I don't have a jumper. But what I do know is, okay, how can I stay on the court? And staying on the court was just being that guy to, what can I do? What consistent stuff can I do? I can box out. I can talk. I was always a very vocal teammate. So even when I was on the bench, hey, switch, just stuff like that. So, what can I consistently do that's going to make me better? And I just think that getting that 1% better every time. So I definitely think just being from the area I'm from and seeing so many people make it, it's inspiring. It's definitely inspiring.
And what you said is extremely unselfish, and I think that is something that's going to take you farther than anything, because it's really, if you can set how you feel it aside and how your feelings are, and really do, and you got that from, sports, and you got that from, well, what does the team need? And that right there, that mindset, that I can't tell you, like, that just helps, man, because it's really like everybody comes onto the court in basketball and wants to score 20. Everybody wants the glam and the fame with scoring 20, but that's not what wins. And what I've noticed is, when you're on winning teams and when you're on losing teams, it's about that culture, and you need guys like that, and you need people like that in your circle. That, I'm okay with taking a back seat right now, and doing the dirty work, doing the stuff that people don't want to do, so that, one day I can shine. And I mean, that alone, man, that's something that not everybody gets.
Definitely. Yeah, I think just like you said, just having that mentality, like growing up, believe it or not, like of course outside like the superstar guys, one of my favorite players to watch was Nick Collison on the Thunder because
Mm,
again at Kansas, of course, he was a huge star. When he got to the league, I mean, he probably played 15 plus years, not because okay he was the best guy on the team, but he did winning stuff. He's setting screens, he's talking. Of course he could hit the jumpers again. He's in the NBA, but he was doing the little stuff and that type of stuff. Like he was a leader in the locker room. It's just stuff like that. Like okay, I'm not going to be the star, but what can I do to contribute? Same thing with like Udonis Haslem. Udonis Haslem's game is not pretty at all. Getting rebounds is not pretty. But again, these are guys who they find a role, they know it wins. And just like you said about culture, when you're winning, a lot of times on winning teams, people really don't care about, okay, who's the main scorer, who's whatever. Like if you win a championship, all 13, 15 guys on that team win the championship. So again, that's your main goal. But when you're on losing teams, that's usually when you hear about the who's scoring more, who's getting paid. You know what I mean? So it's just like again, when you were winning, you're all working for a common goal. That you're having fun. And I think that's what it comes down to with this. You got to have fun in what you do because as soon as you don't enjoy what you do, even on days that it's bad, if you don't love what you do, it's not for you. It's just not for you.
mm. And I mean, that's a great point. That's a great point, because I feel like that love, that passion, like you talked about earlier, takes you over that hump, right? We talked about, you know, the bumps and bruises that you get, and, that having that to keep going and keep pushing, man, that truly is beautiful. It's really beautiful, to be honest with you, because, everybody has a reason to stop, and everybody has a reason to give up. Everybody got a reason to quit. So, why are you not? You know what I mean? Why am I, and my parents made a good point when I was younger, and they said, you know, I used to be upset about stuff I went through, and it's like, who are you to not have to go through anything? You know what I mean? And who are you not to have to deal with the bumps and bruises of life? You're not special. And once you realize that, once you put that in perspective, it's like, all right, well, why am I doing this? And that's what drives you. You know, could you kind of go into a little bit of detail about, this opportunity with ESPN and what it's teaching you, and you feel like you've grown from it? Because I've seen some of your articles, man, and the articles are great, man.
Thank
The
you.
articles are great.
I think the biggest thing it's taught me is one, it's really not who you are, it's who you know. And I think that that just goes back to being a personable person, making those connections. When you go in a room, it doesn't matter how good you think you are, shaking everyone's hand, just, introducing yourself, telling people what you want to do, because you just never know, who knows who and who can help you. But then two, I just think being a sponge, I think that when you have an internship or you have anything, again, I'm at ESPN, that's one of the biggest sports companies. So a lot of people sometimes see it as, oh, you just want the glitz and glamour of it. But what I've kind of enjoyed was I'm working with people who are, the best in their field. You know what I mean? So I'm working with the best sports journalists. Like I met David Aldridge this summer. Just
Mm.
again, I think we talked. It was at the Nats game because we had to go to the Nats game to cover it. We didn't talk about actual, anything about me that whole time, just about his journey, kind of what he's seen, stuff like that. And just learning from people who are where you want to be. I think that's always one of the best things you can do. So I think from that aspect, just learning, I felt like, again, when I was at Xavier, I kind of felt like, I was kind of getting cocky, a little bit complacent of, okay, I'm the best here. But when you kind of start to go out to other places, it's, hey, there's people who are just as dope as me. Because again, in my fellowship, there's 6 of us. So look, I might be the best here, but there's 5 other people who are, also have this ESPN internship, also doing awesome things. So, just again, learning from them, learning from my peers, learning from other people, and just seeing how it goes, and just also enjoying the experience. Because I think a lot of times people always get caught up in the what's next. But if you get too caught up in what's next, of course, like always have a plan and always, think about your future. But if you think too much about what's next, you miss what's going on right now. Like I've had
Yep.
some amazing opportunity. I got to interview some players before the TBT. I got to talk with some people for the Hawks before their season. I've got to interview a lot of great people. So it's just been, stuff like that. Like just appreciating that stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Just again, going through the motions, going through the process, just enjoying it. So I think as a person, I've definitely grown because I've become a lot more humble. I think I've definitely become a lot more observant, a lot better listener. And I think that's something that I used to lack. Like I used to kind of think, again, I'm the best at what I do. And I'm
Mm.
not saying, I'm not confident in myself anymore, but it's also just like, hey, there's people, you know what I mean? There's people just as dope, if not better. And then, you can always learn something new.
Yeah. And I think that what you said is extremely important. You know, you're at the end of the day, especially in your profession, you're competing against a lot of people.
Yep.
And like you said, you can think small and think that, oh well, I'm the best here, and be okay with that, or you can think, well, damn, I'm coming for David Aldridge's job. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Me knowing you, I know that's what's in your head, right? You're talking to David Aldridge, you're soaking it up, but you're like, man, I'm coming for that ESPN spot.
Oh, most
And
definitely.
like you said, that's extremely important because it's not where you're at, it's where you're going, but enjoying where you're at the same time, because you're not where you used to be, but you're not where you want to be.
I,
So
I think that's a great point right there. Like you just said, not where I used to be, but I'm definitely still not where I want to be. And like you said, like of course, like I'm soaking it all in, but hey, like give me a few years, I'm coming. You know what I mean? I'm coming for you. Like
yeah,
I want your spot, and I just think just again, it kind of like lights that fire. Like, okay, like again, you might be one of the greatest right now, but when it's all said and done, I want to be, what I mean? I want to be over. Like, I want to be better than you. So it's just one of those things. Like, of course, this is someone I admire, but it's like, again, I'm coming for you. Like, for instance, Stephen A is one of my biggest inspirations. I love Stephen A. But when it's all said and done, I don't want people to be like, oh, he was another Stephen A. I want them to say they're the next Scott, or you know what I mean? They want to be like
yeah,
Scott. Like, I don't want to hear they want to be the next Stephen A. No, I want them to say, hey, like Scott inspired me. So it's
yeah.
just stuff like that.
Absolutely, man. And that's your why right there. That's your why. And it's I'm smiling, bro, because I'm excited for that journey, man. Because you got so much time, dude. And
Definitely.
and it's really just exciting because you're doing stuff that getting you there, and that's really what I don't know about you, but when that stuff like that happens to me, I get chills, man. I
Ugh.
get chills because I'm like, oh, I can see it. I can see it because
Definitely.
you can always see it, right? You see yourself right now on ESPN,
Right.
right? But when you get something like an ESPN
Yep.
fellowship, you like, man, I'm there. You know what I mean? I'm there, man. It's the door is knocking, bro. So I definitely think that's something beautiful in its own. But if you felt like Scott, if you felt like one thing that talking to David Aldridge and talking to these people, being where you want to go, what do you feel like that their number one thing in journalism and in life? What do you think, if you had to give two things, what do you think those were that you learned?
I'll start with in life. The one thing I've noticed that all the kind of greats that I've talked to, David Aldridge, Bill Rhoden, he who our fellowship is after. There's a few other guys. We met some of the Ravens staff and some of their players. I think the thing that all connects them is off the cameras, off the record, they're good people. You know what I mean? Like they say hi to everyone in the building. They shake everyone's hand. They don't ever think like they're just very humble. Like, of course, these are guys who won awards in their careers. They're at the highest of the highs, but they never, don't pay it forward. I think that's something in life that again to always remember, no matter how good you're doing, still make that way or still take that time to help out the next, person too. Because again, it's a cycle. You're never too good, never too big to help someone else. I think that's the life. But in terms of in journalism, I think the biggest thing is asking questions, not taking no for an answer. Just something that I really admire was like David Aldridge was saying before his time, they wouldn't even allow like black reporters and black journalists even sometimes into stadiums, whether it was for the Super Bowl, whether it's for MLB games. They would have to like sit on top of like the roofs of other buildings and kind of listen to the game and stuff like that and watch like that. But again, it's just like that tenacity and that drive of, hey, even though we're not allowed here, that's not going to stop me from getting my story. I'm not going to take a no from doing it. So I just think that's something that I've had to learn to be just more aggressive in the sense of not, okay, where I want to pester anyone, but definitely just, if someone tells me no, okay, what are my other options? How can I still do this? Like, don't let someone else be the reason I can or can't do something. And that, again, they always say you're only going to go as far as you allow yourself. So just again, just being in control of your own destiny and, not having a ceiling. And I think that's the part that I think David Aldridge really impacted on me that, why is this the best? You know what I mean? Like, again, my goal is Stephen A, but be better than that. You know what I mean? Like, why is that the threshold? Why can't it be something better? So just again, just not selling myself short.
And man, I really think that ties into everything that we've spoke about, because coming from a place where you came from, or coming from you know somewhere where Kevin Durant might come from, or a kid like that, a lot of the times you know people in your community are complacent, and they're okay with getting by or not achieving greater things in life. But like you said, understanding that persistence, understanding that consistency of it, and understanding that there is no ceiling for you. You create the ceiling, and that's the biggest thing I can learn, and people can get and grasp, because like you really put a limit on yourself, and if you do that, that's the most crippling thing ever, right? And a friend of mine, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I'm like, he asked me, well, what's your goals for the end of the year for your business? And I said, well, I wanna close out X amount. I want to close out this. He said, well, why can't you 10x that? And I'm
Right.
like, man, because it just seems unreachable. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem like I can do it. Well, why is it unreachable? You know what I mean? Why is it unreachable? So now you break it down, and you're like, all right. And like you said, you figure out, well, if I get the no, and if I hit the wall, well, how do I get around the wall, right? Am I gonna have to climb over this shit? Am I gonna have to go around it, dig under it? I don't know, but I'm getting past this wall. So that's, I mean, that point is that's butter, man. I'm not gonna lie. And I hope people take that and understand what you really mean by that, and they can apply that to their life.
Yeah, definitely. You just made a good point too about again, there's a lot of people who are complacent at home. And that's something that scares me more than anything. That is just one of my biggest fears in life. A lot of people have some irrational fears. Like outside of like, I used to have a fear of bats and stuff like that. But like my biggest fear really is like, knowing that I had a real chance to do something special and not doing it. Whether it's with this, whether it's, you know what I mean. Like that's one thing my parents always told me. I don't care what you do in life because they've always been supportive of whatever I wanted to do. But it was always just make sure you're the best at it. So if you end up being a garbage man, make sure you're the best garbage man. If you want to be a mailman, be the best mailman. If you want to be a doctor, be the best. But whatever field you're in, don't settle for being mediocre. That was one thing my mom, don't settle for mediocrity. Like if I would get an average grade, she never really cared about the grade itself. It was more of, did you put your best foot forward? So if I had a presentation, are you doing your best? So just stuff like that. And I think that like I have some people back home. I mean, my high school even, there were some, dudes I was friends with, we were cool in high school, hee hee ha ha. Now they're kind of like, they're not doing anything positive. It's not that, they're not my friends anymore. I'm not cool with them, but we can't really, I don't want to hang around that anymore. Because again, you're okay with not doing anything. You're okay with not trying to do better. Because again, life happens. I get it. People go through stuff. But if you don't have that drive, that's the issue. Again, there's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's, for instance, at 20, whatever, cool. But if that's your end goal and this is, you're just okay with doing this for the rest of your life, that's where the problem is. I think a lot of people
That's where
miss
the
that
problem.
is that, you know, I don't care what you're doing right now, as long as you have some type of drive to do something better, want more for yourself. So yeah, I definitely had to get out of that area because again, as much as we have great people, we also have a lot of people who they've never left the DMV area in their 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of life, which is fine. You can, it's no problem calling it home, but see life, see what else is out there. Like at least try to be something, and if you try and you miss, cool. You can live with, hey, I gave it my all, but to not try at all, that's something that scares me. That's something that really scares me.
Absolutely, man. I think that coming back all the way to sports, I think that sports that really translates, and a lot of people are complacent. And growing up in high school, like I seen it, right? I seen kids that had the potential, and me alone, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I got it figured out, because in high school, like I was, and my coach will tell you, I was actually talking to him today. I'll tell you, like, he told me, he was like, well, until you want more, because I remember the day like it was yesterday. I sat there, and we had college coaches coming to watch the workouts and everything. And I told him I wanted to go to Georgia State, and the Georgia State coach actually came and watched the workout. And I'm sitting there, and I wasn't in the workout. He actually it was my junior year, and he actually had a sophomore in the workout instead of me, because you could only bring four at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So he had the sophomore in there, and he told me, like, I'm seeing it on Twitter. He's posting it. Well, thank you, Georgia State, for coming out to watch a workout. I'm like, workout? Like, I'm sitting at home, man. What you talking about workout? So I text him. I'm like, Coach, you knew that's the school I wanted to go to. Why? And he sits there and he says, well, you work hard part of the time. You don't work hard all the time. And that's like in life. That's where my switch flipped, and it was like, you know what? All right, bet. All right, bet. Because it was, I'm complacent. I'm good. You 6'7". You 6'7". You can play wherever you want when you 6'7", but the level you play at is up to you. So you're right with that, with the complacency, man. It's a cancer, bro. And that comfortability, and just understanding that, oh, it's warm where I'm at. I'm comfortable where I'm at. I'm not okay with talking to that person that's doing what I want to do. It takes balls to walk up to David Aldridge and ask him questions. It takes balls to do that. A lot of people wouldn't. And
Yep.
but that's what gets you there. And that's what people don't understand, is that you have to do that thing that you don't want to do to be where you want to be. And that's it. There's no blueprint to it. Do what you don't want to do to be where you want to be. And
Yep.
like, there's no special recipe to this shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. That's
And
it.
you brought up a great point because that reminds me of a story of me in high school. So my freshman year, I didn't play baseball because I was just adjusting to school. Sophomore year, I made the team, made JV, didn't get much playing time. Cool. Junior year, most of my the fellow people like in my class who were on the team, we're all at tryouts. We're all hee hee ha ha and whatever. And then after tryouts, my coach pulls me to the side. He's like, "Hey, whatever, da da da." We're talking. Just ask me how I'm, man. Then he says, "It hurts me to say this. I like you as a person, but you're not on the team this year." I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, "You're good," but he was like, again, you didn't come to any of the winter workouts. You didn't play any ball over the thing. The last time you touched the baseball was when JV. Like you haven't showed me anything that you've got any better from last year. And again, you're a great guy to have around. Love you as a person, but you don't put that work in. And so that was a real big wake up call because that was my junior year. And that same time after that, so at the time, so like in high school, my number one school was Duke. Like that was the school I wanted to go to, whatever. And Duke had an event in our area, and my counselor didn't recommend me. Cool, whatever. So I'm like, okay. And then Princeton came as well. Again, two real good schools. Cool. And I go to the thing, whatever, go through a round of interviews. My senior year, and I don't get either school. I get waitlisted for Duke, Princeton, I get rejected. And that was kind of that wake up call of same thing with baseball that I don't care how good I think I am until I really put in that time, put in those hours, no one else is gonna see. What I mean? They're not gonna see the same
Yeah.
thing. So it's back to like you said, it's not some secret formula. It's not. It's black and white of again. put the work in, or else you're not gonna get what you want. It's just simple as that. So I think that you made a great point right there. That again, you don't put the work in, you're not gonna get it. You're just not gonna get it.
Mm. And something that stuck out to me what you just said was, you know, no matter how much I think I'm good, the outside got to see it too, and that's something that I've been kind of playing around with this past few months is understanding that and knowing that you know like how people see me and how I see myself are two different things,
Yep.
which is powerful in a sense because you can play around with either perception, right? You can play around with the perception of other people, and you can play around with the perception of you, and you see it. For example, you see it with Kanye, right? People can call him crazy, people can call him whatever. He doesn't think he's crazy, right?
Exactly.
But people think he's crazy. So the perceptions are different, and I think also one thing, if people can understand that, they'll also be able to reach that next level because they'll know that it directly correlates, right? If I want to look like a thug, I
Yep.
can do thug things, right? And then people will look at me like a thug. Same goes for what you want to do, though, right?
Yep.
If you want to be a top journalist, what are the top journalists right now doing? What are
Yep.
they eating? How do they sleep? How much do
Yep.
they work? You see those things and you implement them in your life. It directly correlates to the outside. And
Definitely.
I think that's something that people really could pick up and they don't always think about.
Most definitely. I think you just made a great point. A famous saying that I like to live by: "Fake it till you make it." Even if you aren't where you want to be at, like you said, how you dress might change how someone perceives you. And again, I'm not saying okay, you got to come in wearing a suit and tie every day, but if the people who are where you want to be are doing certain things, it might be in your best interest to do that same thing. Like you said, again, you can't say you want to be, on the Forbes list and be a future, billionaire, and you're coming pants sag, slouching, you know what I mean? Just stuff like that. Like again, you can do whatever you want to do in life, but 9 out of 10, there's already someone who's kind of done what you want to do, and just mirror that, mimic that, pick up on those things. So I think you just made a great point that again, perception is everything. Like I think Kanye is a genius. I think he's a great work ethic. I think what he's done marketing wise and all that, that's great. But his downfall was, again, what he perceived himself as and what the media was perceiving as two different things. At the end of the day, in this world, I hate to say it right now, the media perceives you a certain way that could make or break you. So again, I think he's a genius and I think he'll definitely shake back. But again, that definitely hurt him in the current state because again, like you said, two different perceptions.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I go back and forth with my parents about the Kanye situation because the way I think and the way I process things are not always don't always align with my parents,
Yep.
obviously, you know, and they say certain things and they're saying this and that and how I think and how I think and how they think are two different things. So it's like like you said, Kanye is truly a genius, all right? And I don't think people understand that you can call him crazy, but what's crazy is being a billionaire. That's what's
Yep.
crazy, right? And people will look at that and be like, well, yeah, he said this and this, but dude, the dude was crazy enough to build the wealth in the first place. You know what I mean? And not even build, dude. It takes generations to build billionaire status wealth,
Yep.
right? And he did that in 40 years.
Yep.
So I don't think people really understand that that's crazy in itself. It's just good crazy. So people don't talk about it, right?
Oh, definitely.
And then the way he thinks, the way he's wired, bro, it's like like he don't even see it the same way as your average person. But through the media, if you post something, you forget that you're, like you said, you forget that you're posting something to the masses, essentially, right? Which don't think align, the thoughts don't align with your thoughts.
Definitely.
So he didn't take that into account, I feel like, and trying to wake up a generation and trying to get a generation to wake up is a tough task, and
It's
he's
tough,
taking it on by himself. Kyrie Irving's taking it on by himself because at
man.
the end of the day, and you know, this is my platform, so I'll say it, but I don't mean anything anti-Semitic by it or anything like that. But if you really do the homework and you look at how many Jewish people own billion-dollar companies, and they're out there, and they're the CEOs, and they control everything, I mean, it you can see it. It's not like you gotta, sit here and say stuff, but if you speak against them, it is what it is, right?
I,
And
I,
you see that,
I,
and it affects you. And now you see people having to answer, right? And I don't mean to turn this into a political conversation or anything like that, but especially Kyrie Irving, you know, it's like,
man.
I mean, he didn't even say anything, bro. Like he posted it, and it's like, when you post something, you could mean a lot of things by it, and
Yep.
what you got to take into account is how people are going to perceive it.
Yep.
And that's what people don't think about, is how are people going to perceive this after I do this.
Yeah, and I think that's the point right there, how people are going to perceive it. Because again, I personally don't know Kyrie, but Kyrie is a very charitable person. Like again, regardless of him being one of my favorite players on the court, but he does a lot in the community. He does a lot of great stuff that the media doesn't cover. They don't, they don't talk about. So I really truly don't think Kyrie meant harm by it. Again, I can't speak for him, of course, but just like you said, I think it was a perception thing. Personally, I think Kyrie didn't mean any harm, but again, if the media perceives you did it, it doesn't matter what your intent was. Because at the end of the day, once the media has control of something, but I just think again, it's just an interesting thing. Not to go on a bird box, but just like the media is a very powerful tool, and the people who are able to use it to their advantage go very far. But when you're on the other end of it, it's definitely a very uphill battle to try to get back. And then with Kanye, I think again, do I think Kanye's made some interesting statements? Of course, but I do feel in his heart of hearts, he's a genius. He's a genius, and no matter what he says, same thing with Kyrie. No matter what they say, they're geniuses at what they do. And like you said, it's only going to sound crazy to someone who's not. Like you said, being a billionaire is a crazy thing. It's a good
Mm.
crazy. But again, people aren't gonna understand that. And you're not gonna. I don't want to say normal people, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like if you
Yeah,
don't have
the
aspiration,
masses.
you don't right. You know what I mean. If you don't
Yeah,
have that aspiration or you don't have that mindset, you're gonna view him as crazy. But what you view as crazy, he views as normal, everyday thing. So just again,
absolutely.
I think perception in this world is, I think it's everything. I think it's everything.
And Kanye made a good point on a podcast he'd been on recently. He said that a dude, a person running shirtless on the other side of the highway in the wrong way, sweating, everything, is crazy. You driving past that man, you gonna be like, all right, he's crazy. But 500 people do it. Oh,
Right.
that's a marathon. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was a great point he said. And what I challenge people when I have conversations, with their thoughts and their just how their mind works, I try to get them to understand that you know everybody's mind's different. So
Yep.
you're not gonna have the same thoughts as someone else. Number two, that you know your perception is different. And number three, what you view and what your ideas are may or may not align with others, but that doesn't mean they're wrong or right.
Right.
Right? You can go back in time and sit there and try to tell the Nazis that killing Jews is wrong, right? And they're gonna answer, no, it's not.
Yep.
Now, yes, it is. You see what I'm saying? So it's segregation, everything, abortion, whatever it may be, it's wrong or right in somebody's eyes. So it's really living out your purpose and what you want to do.
Yep.
But kind of taking a total shift. And we're gonna come back. And we're gonna bring it out or bring it back. Where talk to me a little bit about where you want to go in the future and what your goals are and the things you want to accomplish.
Definitely. I think one of my more immediate goals is definitely after graduation, either getting an entry level job with the NBA or MLB team, or even an NCAA team. I wouldn't mind that. And do kind of like sideline reporting and stuff like that. But my main end goal is I would like to have one day, kind of like my own sports talk show, something like Shannon and Skip, something like Stephen A. First Take and stuff like that. Like, I think that's something I want to have. Like, I want to be that. But on a non-professional side, I think I want to be something where I can create a program that I can mentor, people who look like me, people coming up, because, you know, I didn't really have. That's one thing I will say. Like I've had some people I've met who have kind of given me pointers here and there. But I didn't really have like a mentor, someone kind of really like. Of course, I had shout out to Mr. V in the student media department. Who's helped me like with my editing and little stuff. But I didn't have someone in the field kind of really like kind of taking me under their wing. So I would love to have a mentoring program like that where I could really give people that real insight in real time. But I think again, ultimately, my main goal after being the biggest sportscaster ever and the best one ever, I think I would love to when my brother gets out of college and he does his thing, and once he finally owns his own zoo, I would love to transition into nature media. Like I would love to be like the Black Steve Irwin and have a nature show. Like I love sports, but my first love was always like animals in the outdoors. So I would love to transition into that. But again, and I guess taking a step further, I guess one day kind of like maybe not necessarily having my own media network myself, but I would love to kind of, because one thing I learned is like all the major like media companies, news stations, they're all owned by kind of like the same people, the same ownership group. So I would love to kind of be on a more independent group, what I mean, make a little bit more for the people and a little bit less. I don't want to say filter because that's the wrong word, but just again, like, I want to kind of to promote independent media again and kind of, just be able to again be that person. Not only okay, I'm the best sportscaster ever, but how can I bring more people with me? Because I think that that's something that I've learned, and something I've always preached is, there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's no reason why I can't help somebody else. Like like yes, people are my competition, but at the same time, okay, if I've made it to this point, how can I bring someone else with me? Because what I mean, we're only stronger. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So how can I help someone? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I think that's just my biggest goal again, to be the greatest sportscaster ever, have my own sports show, but also just be able to give back and really create that pipeline of okay, I can create the next HBCU great, I can create the next
mhm,
Maryland great, like just giving back.
yeah. Well, man, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that you will accomplish all of those. All of
Appreciate
those. There's
it.
no doubt in my mind, man. Um, so that my listeners can support you and the community over here can support you.
Definitely,
Um, kind of let us know what social accounts,
definitely,
websites, whatever wherever they can find you at.
definitely. So my Twitter and Instagram are at DMV_Scott. On there, I'll usually sometimes drop some sports takes and stuff, as well as I'll post like the interviews and stuff I do. And then my YouTube page is Scott Talks, or actually no, I'm sorry, that's the name of my podcast. On my YouTube page is again DMV underscore Scott, or DMV Scott. I think it might be a space. I'll send you the actual link.
And we'll have it in
But
the description. So
yeah, but with that, I try to do weekly, bi-weekly podcast episodes, usually focus on sports. But then when like more interesting stuff goes on, I try to do some vlogs and stuff like that, just of like, vacation or this sporting event, this and that. And then you can find some of my writing on andscape.com, ANDSCAPE.com. It is one of ESPN's platforms. That's where you can find a lot of my stuff. We also have a fellow led podcast that I do too. So I usually do the editing for that, and then every 6 to 8 weeks I'll be a host on it. But yeah, definitely Instagram and Twitter are the best ways. I feel like that's where I post most of my like direct stuff. But again, yeah, that definitely connect with me again. If there's anyone listening to this who wants to get into writing or sports media, please let me know, because I do know some people at different schools and stuff who are doing it. So definitely let me know. Yeah, and again, Joe, thank you so much. Like a lot of people, like I said in the beginning, Joe was one of the interviews I did submit for my fellowship. So so to come full circle and now be on his podcast and his platform, that's a huge blessing. So I really do appreciate the opportunity.
well, man, I'll be honest. When I started my podcast, I wasn't the best host, but taking stuff from you and your mannerisms, I learned a lot, man. And like I said to my listeners, if you're listening, go connect with my man Scott. That's not
Mhm.
that's not a suggestion. That's a demand. All right. So take your butt to the description right now and go follow my man on the platforms he listed. We're gonna have them all in the description, so you got no excuse. It's about 2 swipes away. So um, get with my man, follow his journey and everything he's gonna get accomplished. And again, Scott, it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast, man. We got to get together soon,
Most
and
definitely.
like I said, all blessings, all love over here, and I appreciate you, my man.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah. thank you for listening to this episode of Recess the Podcast. This episode was brought to you by Vidport Media. If you have a small business that is struggling with revenue generation, lead generation, or even customer engagement, find us at on social media at Vidport Media, and also our website at vidportmedia.com. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.